each one of us, you, me, and everybody, hopefully our listeners, some of our listeners, have a superpower. I was put kind of on a spot in the room with 4 people. Within 2 hours, I raised $1 million. Stuff happens to you, good, bad, that's life. You choose how to react to it and how to think about it.
So guys, today is my pleasure to interview Alex, and we're gonna know more about your history and how you came until where you are right now. So we're gonna start from the beginning. So you grew up in the Soviet Union. So what was your childhood like, and how did it shape your entrepreneurial mindset?
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to share some thoughts, ideas, insights with our audience and with you, Rodrigo. So to answer your question is just let's go back in time a little bit. Soviet Union is a country that no longer exists, right? It was there and it's no longer there. If somebody doesn't remember it, basically it was the biggest communist country in the world. And it kind of like united all Russia, but we see Russia and all the little countries around it, like, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Belarus, all that stuff. So I was born there, and again, it was a different time, different country. It was a country that basically prioritized people's kind of like being the same, equal. Everybody had to be the same. Everybody got the same salary. It doesn't matter. It was 200 rubles. It doesn't matter if you were an engineer, if you were a doctor. Maybe some really extreme professionals or maybe academics were getting more. But overall, everybody got 200 rubles. That's it. That's how it was. Everybody was the same. So everybody kind of had the same level of life. Everybody had very few people had cars, but everybody had 2-bedroom apartment. People had clothes. I've never seen poor people, but I've never seen really rich people. It was very average. Everybody kind of wore very similar clothes because everything was made by the government. And when you go to the store, you'll see like 2 types of bread, or maybe 2 types of cereal, or 1 type of milk. So everything was very much the same. People like in America where we live now can't imagine it, right? How can there be 1 type of cereal? It's crazy. But then it was 1 type of cereal, 1 type of bread. So that's how I was living, and I had my twin brother Nick. And we basically at 6.5 years old, almost at 7, my parents decided to send us to a boarding school. So what is a boarding school? A boarding school is basically, it's a place where you kind of like used to leave on Sunday night, Sunday evening. My parents drive us or take the train since we didn't have a car. They would took us to the boarding school, and you would stay until Friday. We'd stay until Friday, and we'd live there, we eat there, we sleep there, and my parents pick us up on Friday, and they would take us back. That's how it was. So at 7 years old, my brother and I kind of realized that we don't have anybody else in the world but ourselves. Imagine you there, and the kids were much bigger than us, and imagine what was happening in after the class was over. It was pure bullying. It was real bullying. It was like Americans really don't understand what bullying is, quite honestly. It's like, you think Mean Girls, that's the bullying here, like really there, it's like, it was rough.
Real life.
Real life. So, it starts with kids approaching, taking your lunch, like bigger kids opening your backpack, and teachers kind of just pass by there, say, hey kids, just take it easy, don't worry about it, don't get hurt too much. So that was it. So they knew there's something bad is going to happen here. They just don't want any bones being broken. So that was it. So it kind of was bullying. I don't think it was approved, but everybody knew it was happening. As long as it's not too rough, that was happening. So we got our clothes. Some of our clothes were taken, stolen, whatever. Food was taken. At night, sometimes we would wake up just for fun, because we would sleep in a big room with 40 kids, 40 boys and girls were separated, thank God. And we would wake up with toothpaste on our face, because it was fun. It was funny. And so that was it. So basically, we realized pretty quickly at 7 years old that there's a rough world out there, and you need to stick together. And first of all, we started taking boxing classes. We started learning boxing. We'd come home with dad teach us some how we defend ourselves against the big guys. And then we had to I had to learn to survive. Basically, is how do you you go to class? How do you how do you, after you come back from class, how do you not get beaten up every single time? I used to read a lot. I used to be kind of like a geek. I would say I'm still a bit of a geek. And I read a lot of books. And then one of the kind of guys there, one of the other kids, I was 7, maybe 8, and he was maybe 9. he noticed I was reading, and he said to me, Alex, what are you reading? Tell me a little bit about that. I was like, before we go into sleep. So I kind of told him what I was reading, and next day, he came again, sat next to me. So tell me what was happening in that story. I was reading, I think, Three Musketeers, And the next day he came again, next evening, and then maybe he brought his friend, and I was probably, by the end of the week, I had like 2 or 3 kids, maybe 4, sitting listening to me, to my stories. And then more and more, and probably within 2 or 3 weeks, I had like maybe 10 kids sitting, me telling them stories that I read, And I remember that there was a bigger kid, like a big bully, who was like probably 2, 3 years older than all of us, maybe 10 years old. We were 7, 8, and he was 10. Big guy, like a linebacker, fat guy, strong, and strong also. And he came there, and he saw a bunch of kids gathered. He goes, "What are you guys doing here?" "Oh, we're listening to this guy telling us stories, And he said, okay, he sat there, and I remember he listened to it, and he said, like, okay, and he kind of like nodded his head, and he walked away. Then he came back the next day, and he would listen again, and then, and so forth. So I never, he was a rank above me, definitely. But I saw it, he was interested. So I was like, okay, this guy is interested. And it actually came handy because there were 2 bullies that were beating up me and my brother. And I saw they were a year older than us, so they were 8, and he was passing by in the corridor in the school. He saw them bullying. He came to them and said, "Listen, if you touch this guy, Alex, and his brother, they're with me. You're gonna have big trouble." And he looked at them, and we were never bothered again. That's it. So to me, I kind of like early on, probably about 7, 8 years old, I realized that I have this superpower of telling stories. And that feeling. It's a good feeling because it was we didn't have we were feeling powerless, scared,
and to realize physical ways, right?
Yes, and you felt like we had this I had this power, this gift I could share with people, and I could get friends, I could get protection, I could get a sense of belonging to a group, because I started belonging to a little gang there in the boarding school, and that I remembered with me, and that later on came to play a very important part in my career. The storytelling, the ability to tell stories.
That was very interesting. I had a lot of questions about that because
yes,
you and your brother was living under this situation about socialism, like Soviet Union. Until which age?
We were living until we were 10 years old. When we were 10 years old, we moved to 1990. We moved to Israel. So we were living there. And we saw the whole Soviet Union collapse. We would come every day, like every week. We'd go sometimes with our parents to the grocery store, and we'd see like less and less food. We'd see long lines, people waiting for food. So you could see, like, again, we were 10 years old. We didn't know.
So exactly, that's my question. With 10 years old, what do you realize with this situation? Like, what was not the lesson, but what was your impression about that? Like, you just feeling that something is wrong.
Yeah, I just felt something is wrong, but I already could see at 10 years old, you begin to understand, like you begin to see certain things. So number one, my parents, and I think everybody pretty much, was afraid to speak loudly in their houses. They were afraid, yes. Why? Because we in the socialism, whatever you want to call it, we lived in a situation where the neighbors could snitch on you. There was a special line on the police, and they loved listening. If you hear your neighbors or your friends or your coworkers doing something wrong or conspiring, please call us. It would be like very normal. So I remember that my parents used to speak very, very quietly about certain things inside the house. And to me as a kid, I was like, it would be like, "Hey, Lena, come here." And then, "But the neighbor said this." All of a sudden, they would switch in the middle of a conversation to whispering to each other.
What is this?
And
game?
I was like, I was working. What is going on? What kind of game is that? What's going on, parents? So that was a little bit odd. So I realized they were scared inside their own apartment. So to me, it's like, wow, this is odd. And second of all, in Russia back then, it was a communist country. So we used to be like, we used to become part of the Communist Party pretty early. At 9 years old, they would kind of brainwash and tell you how great communism was, and Lenin and Stalin and Marx. They were great leaders. And then you're supposed to recite your oath of allegiance to the Communist Party. I remember reciting. And in the middle of it, I started laughing because I realized how ridiculous it was. But it was a huge problem, Oh. I remember at 9 years old, they called my parents to school. They said, like, "Oh, your son, Alex, was Sasha," as they called me in Russia. You start laughing in the middle of a communist oath. Is everything okay in your household? Do you believe in communism?
Do you want to talk some?
Do you want anything
something?
you want to tell us? And I saw my parents were terrified. Terrified because this is the
It's
type
very
of
serious.
stuff.
Yeah.
You can go to jail just like that.
And it can disappear just like that.
And yes, back in so maybe 20 years before I was born, so in 1960s, people used to disappear. 50s, 60s to disappear. Like at night, my grandfather told me stories. You'd have a neighbor. A neighbor was a nice guy, everything. And then the next day, you would not see that neighbor. You'd ask people around, did you see anything? And they would pretend like nothing happened.
Wow.
Like, oh, no, we don't know. Well, we maybe went to visit family. But everybody knew what happened. At night, black cars would come very quietly, they'd put him there, and he would be gone. And would be gone, be probably sent to Siberia or in jail, and would never be seen again. So that was the environment that I was towards the end of that. So it already was wearing off. Everybody knew it was fake. Everybody knew it was collapsing. But because people are so afraid, so fearful of what were the consequences, nobody was talking about it openly. Maybe behind closed doors, or the 1980s.
Yeah.
So that was the environment that I grew up with, and I remember just kind of everything being gray. People wearing maybe for the most part same clothes, kind of like this gray colors, black colors. I didn't see a lot of color. And at 10 years old, my father is Russian, my mother is Jewish. My parents moved to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That was a completely different experience, and I can talk about that if you would like.
Yeah, I would like to do another question about boarding school.
Yes.
Was it an option about your father because maybe represent something special, or was the economic situation because 2 kids sometimes they're expensive? Was a private school, public school?
Yeah, so it's a good question. The school was a good school. So it's a school where I started speaking English when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
The school actually was hard to get. Now that I asked my parents, it's a school was a foreign service school. So from there, many people become diplomats. They would go become
really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because the school would be, and I realized as a kid you don't know, but I realized my classmates they were parents authors, their parents were in the army, like a high-ranking army, pretty successful, pretty important people. So many people would be trained to speak different languages, and that's how I started speaking English pretty early. And they would go to become foreign service.
Because by the way, you speak more than 5 or 6 languages.
Yes,
right?
I speak 5 languages. Yeah. Yes, I like languages, but I think that's when I started very early. You start with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I started with languages, and my mind is very flexible when it comes to languages. I like.
And you love to read, so
I like to
connect.
read.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So that was a good training. But my parents had their own careers. Plus, they wanted me and my brother to be successful early on. And they kind of combined, I think, their need to have their own careers and be busy with whatever they're doing, plus doing something good for their kids, teaching them languages early on,
So your parents was aiming that you put
Right.
in the right place to get
right.
Maybe you can grow
Right.
in the good way,
Yes.
and of course networks and
Correct.
You told about the parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Russia, just that's important. The kind of the code, the emotional code of the country is like, the goal first, emotions later. Even with kids, nobody really cares what your emotions are. We want you to be this. We want you to be successful. We want you to be, get good grades, learn something, and you're going to go to boarding school at 7 years old. There was not a lot of I see how kids being raised in Brazil, or in America. Oh, what do you want, Johnny? Oh, what do you want, Rodrigo? Joao? None of that stuff. We want you to go to do this, and you're going to do this. I meet a lot of Chinese people, sometimes Chinese kids, and it's very similar. So I think it has something to do with the communist mentality. It's basically that the collective overrides the individual. Whatever collective wants, your parents representing the collective, that's what you're going to do. And we don't care if you're scared, sad,
I like
and
that.
everything.
That's a good point about, I'm not saying that I like communism.
Yeah.
I like the point of view that you are bringing. Very good.
Yes.
How did the childhood storytelling translate into business success?
Yes, storytelling. Right. So why am I telling you about this childhood stories? Because I think that each one of us, you, me, and everybody, hopefully our listeners, some of our listeners, have a superpower inside of them. Each one of us. And I think many people are not living to their full potential because first of all, they don't realize they have a superpower. And second of all, they don't know what it is. And third of all, they don't know how to grow it and improve it. In my case, and I think in many other people's cases, the superpower is born or developed or identified in childhood. So my superpower was born out of necessity. I just didn't want to get bullied, beaten up, my lunch taken. And it kind of it happened by happenstance. I realized I was telling stories. I could tell stories. I realized that people could listen to me, and I realized I could get friends, protection, connection, right, in very basic needs that the kid needs, right? So that ability I developed later on as I kind of, I continued to tell stories, and I was always making presentations. I was in debate clubs. That continued to grow. And then when I was in my 20s, I was starting my company, and somebody said, Alex, listen, you need to, you're going to be buying real estate. You need money. Where are you going to get money from? I was like, I don't have money. So he says, well, listen, maybe you can make some, meet some wealthy people, some investors, and tell them about your company, about your vision. And I was like, I don't have a company. I don't have what vision. He says, well, go ahead and try it, So at that time, we were looking to buy a small building in Chicago. We were already fast forward to the United States. And, it was during the financial crisis. And I think we needed like $1 million. And to me, $1 million was like $100 million. It doesn't matter, a million, it was just unthinkable. I had maybe $10,000 to my name. And to get $1 million, I didn't know. So I said, listen, go meet with this, doctor, and maybe he can help you. I know he invests in real estate. Maybe he's going to invest in you. So there was a doctor there. There was, and I came, there was a group of 3-4 people, some men, some women. I said, oh, here, my friends, we are looking at different investments, and somebody told me that you have an investment. So tell us about what you're looking to do with this investment. So I was put kind of on a spot in the room with 4 people. And I was like, kind of like, a little embarrassed, a little scared, a little fearful. But then that little skill that I had from back in the day, right? So we're talking about 20 years later, right? I was 27, I was 7 years old when I started telling stories. It kicked in, and I almost felt like this kind of force from within me. I felt goosebumps, everything. Like you get those physical signs. Yeah. And I started telling a story about the building, what I'm looking to do with this, how I'm going to improve the lives of people, of tenants. And I spoke for about 20 minutes. I really don't remember what I said, but I saw the adults there, really many of them really wealthy people, as I found out later, were kind of mesmerized just listening to me. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's the same power, the same thing that I had back in boarding school. Yeah. People can listen to me. So within 2 hours, I raised $1 million. Wow, that was it. They said, okay, Alex, we're in. We're writing checks. Amazing. So I walked out of there. First, I was shaking.
So what? This one was your first step in the real estate?
Yes, it was my first step.
In your first step, you raised like
it was no, but then we had my brother and I. We had a couple of apartments that we managed to buy with our own money, borrowed money, everything raised from relatives. But this is when I spoke to people I didn't know. So we were growing to the next stage. So, this is what I was raising money from before that, from friends and family. Small amounts.
Yeah, you start in Toronto and then you go outside.
This was my first time where I had to go out and I had to raise money from people I didn't know. That was the first time.
Oh, that's incredible. But I think I need to back a little bit just to do a connection that everybody can understand, because you have amazing background. You started living in Russia.
Yes.
And then you moved to Israel with 10 years old?
10 years old. So
and then you lived there until
I was 21.
Okay. So, but when did you start to learn Hebrew, at home or in Israel?
In Israel. Okay. I did not know a word of Hebrew.
Okay.
And I lived, we moved to Israel because Soviet Union collapsed. My parents moved out of kind of a desire to give their kids a better future. We moved in 1990.
So you did Aliyah.
We did Aliyah. It's called Aliyah, going up in Hebrew, Aliyah, right? We moved from Russia to Israel. And we started from zero. I didn't know Hebrew. Now my parents knew Hebrew. We moved. Really, like when I think of immigration, that's how we started. We started at the very bottom. My father was a security guard. He was an engineer, top engineer, designing weapons for Russian military back in the day. And my mother was a professor of English. Mm-hmm. And my mother became a cleaning lady, and my father became a security guard. So it was quite. And we lived in a very, very small apartment in a poor neighborhood, with like a rough neighborhood, back in the day in Jerusalem. So that
Jerusalem,
Jerusalem, yeah, the holy city, Jerusalem, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how we had to kind of like reinvent ourselves again. We started, my parents.
So that episode was the first immigration episode in your life.
Yes, it was the first immigration. It was very, very rough, because I saw how my parents were reacted. Really, they were like went to the very bottom.
And you could understand more because we were 10 to 11. So start.
Yeah. I was already almost 11. I could understand more, and I saw how it really impacted them. They were very, very I would say emotionally stressed, financially stressed. And I could see them coming home just tired. My mom would cry a lot sometimes,
Yeah,
and
because I think they compare about the
yeah, of course. They lost their life.
they lost
They went in an
everything.
apartment. They were
Okay.
respected professionals. They were accomplished, and now my mom is cleaning toilets, and my father is a guard,
Secure, yeah.
security guard.
So I think it's a good hook to ask you. Do you think your entrepreneurial mindset started in this time because you saw your parents
Yes,
in the rush time, the tough time?
yes. That's it's a good question. So yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think I never thought about becoming a businessman. I never thought about back in Russia. I didn't know anybody was an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Everybody worked for the government.
Yes.
And that's how it's supposed to be. And you go get your job for the government. You get your $200, and you're done. You go home. That's it. You live your life. In this mediocrity. But then when I was 11, I realized we didn't have money. Sometimes we didn't have money to buy food. It was pretty basic. We bought bread or bought like stuff, but like to buy something extra, fruits and vegetables. Sometimes we didn't have enough money. So we were not starving, but like anything extra, my parents said, Alex, we don't have money this month. Let's say next month.
Got it.
So we will have this period of lack. I would say probably a couple of years until my parents established themselves. And I realized that, oh man, you really need money. You really need money to be secure and buy yourself an extra banana or buy a toy. I bought toys maybe once or twice a year. We could not buy toys. We didn't have money to buy toys. And that was it. So yes, correct. I said like, I need to have this freedom to take care of myself, to buy myself what I want and not to be worried. So definitely desire to start to become a businessman. Somebody who makes money started then when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old,
Yeah, because with all this background, I can understand that you are going from ideas, right? So you start to thinking more and more.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so
correct.
It's very, very important because now you are Alex years later.
Yes.
We're a successful guy and guys are strong and keep giving and having amazing ideas. So I think explaining a lot for us. But I know it was a tough part of your life. I can bear with that. But in Israel, did you suffer bullying again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's fine.
Because it's immigration, right? Just to break ice now, because it was hard to talk about that.
Right. So if 100%. So it's funny. In Russia, I was kind of bullied because I was Jewish. Kind of people found out, and I was like, oh, Jew. When I moved to Russia, I was bullied. To Israel, I was bullied because I was Russian. So there was this. I was like, what? The table switched. But what it made me very emotionally resilient.
Okay.
I think
you came from a place that emotions.
Yes, emotions had to be in a drawer.
Second place, yeah.
Right, and in Israel, I had to be tough again. So it's both two countries. Like funny, both countries are in the news recently, last few years, right?
Yeah.
Russia attacking Ukraine. And to me, again, we can talk about that separately. My father is Russian, my mom is Ukrainian Jewish, so it's like two cousins fighting with each other. And then I moved to another country, which was Israel, which is also a tough country. It's always under attack, and you have to kind of stand up for yourself. So two countries, which are kind of the ethos, the culture of the country is very tough. Yeah. It's tough, physically tough, and I had to be tough again. I had to be, but then I discovered also I was good at sports. I never tried it, but I was good at sports, and I became a really good basketball player. And I was like captain of my team in high school, and I became really, really successful, in sports, and I kind of gained respect that way. But in the beginning, it was also bullying.
Now I got another question. I'm sorry about that, but it's impossible to not do that. Do you think all these situations that we're laughing and talking about bullying nowadays, we can laugh about it? But do you think, now talking about the life and about entrepreneurship way, do you think those challenge helped you to keep going? Because nowadays it's very easy to become victim.
Yes, victim, correct.
I start complaining, what's happened with me, why they are bullying me, but you react different, right?
Correct.
You never gave a space for that.
Correct.
Okay, so could you explain more? Because I think this is a good mindset.
That's a very, very good question, actually. Thank you, Rodrigo. Stuff happens to you, good, bad, that's life. Okay, you choose how to react to it and how to think about that. Okay, so to me, very early on, at 7 years old, I kind of had to decide: and again, it was not a conscious decision. I was, thank God, I was wired that way that I didn't go into this victim spiral. I could have thought easily, my parents abandoned me, My parents don't want me. They send me away because they don't like me. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Okay.
It's an easy way.
Easy way out. But I think it was really like just my brain didn't go there. I was kind of more in the moment, and I kind of like I played with kids, I fought with kids, I concentrated on my studies. I never went down that spiral. That now I could, as an adult, and I've seen a lot of people around me self-destruct psychologically by doing this. I see how dangerous that spiral is, right? So as we have our hopefully a lesson to people who listen to our channel, mindset is, what? Yes, bad stuff is going to happen to you. Tragedies, people are going to bully you. Bad stuff is going to happen to you. Parents are going to say to you mean things. Other people you care. But how you perceive it and how you react to that's your choice. That's your choice. So do you want to be a victim or do you want to be a victor? Right? That's very important. And that could be a first special power. Yes, people are shooting arrows at you, but you can imagine you have this invisible shield, and those arrows are not really hitting you. Okay, that's a choice you can make, right? And always, so what is that shield? Is the ability to reframe, an ability. I'll take my personal example. Oh, my parents sending me to boarding school. They don't love me. They hate me. I have terrible parents. Okay, that's a wrong way of. Okay. Let's reframe this. Let's work on this ability. My parents sent me to boarding school because they care about me and because they want me to have a better future, because they want me to teach English and other languages from early age. That's the way to reframe it. And yes, it's sort of like cleaning your room. After I have kids now. I always tell them, clean your toys, right? So I think at the end of every day, you should, before you go to sleep, clean your room, clean your mind, and organize your thoughts and organize the events in a way that's going to be productive to you. Things that will give you meaning and power to move forward, to start the next day at a higher level. Okay, and that's what needs to be done. I think part of the mindset. That's what I do. I organize I go before I go to sleep. I look at my day I sit down 5 minutes, 10 minutes before going to sleep, and I organize it in a way that gives me a meaning, strength, energy, power, creativity to go to the next day. It's very important.
I got a lot of lessons about these answers because I like when you say, do you want to be a victim or victory?
Victor, yes, correct.
That's very good. And the other lesson that I got that I wrote here, that you're trying to explain for everybody, that to reframe, so to not reflect, try to reframe, because sometimes when you try to use a shield could be just to block and give it back.
Sure.
Or you can use a shield to reframe all the information, the situation. Correct. Because what is the real life? Real life is a challenge every day, right?
Correct.
It's and a real life like yours, you can tell more about that, and we hope that we can say, okay, now I got some successes, but the successes just came with a lot of defeats,
100%
lose,
yes.
Michael Jordan one time told something about that, right? You just count how many points I scored, but you don't count how many points I lose.
Right.
So I think you gave a good example for now. So like we're talking about, you immigrate twice. First to Israel,
yes.
and then you come to America. So we're gonna keep telling about your history. What did each displacement teach you about resilience?
Yeah, I'm a professional immigrant. A professional migrant. I've done it twice. So I moved when I was 10 years old to Israel, from Russia to Israel, and I've done it at 21 from Israel to America. I moved twice, and I say again, I can move to Mars tomorrow, and I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be fine. I'm very successful.
It's a good mindset.
Yes, absolutely.
Usually people want to stay stabilized, right?
Yeah.
So that's maybe it's not the make. For everybody, right?
Yes. So this actually, I want to talk to somebody maybe listening to us who is maybe his or her life in chaos right now, instability, maybe family instability, maybe friends, maybe you're moving from one country to another. I want to tell you guys that this is where your superpower will be born. This is instability, as stressful and anxious as it is actually long term. If you get it in the right way. If you process it in the right way, it's good for you, because it will prepare you for anything that life may bring you. And I see many people come to me who I'm building companies at this point, building and selling, and really I employ a lot of people, and many people come to me like sometimes like live, my wife or other people that look at my lifestyle. Alex, how do you do this? How do you deal with this ups and downs? One day you're up, one day you're down. Instability. Maybe one of the companies on the verge of bankruptcy, one of the companies succeed. How do you deal with this chaos? I never thought about it, but recently, as I started reflecting on my life with Rodrigo and other people, I said, like, listen, I think that's what my childhood, young years taught me is like, yeah, you're going to be close to the edge here, okay, but you will survive and you'll go to new heights. You always keep climbing. Falling, it's okay. Sliding, it's okay. Hurting yourself as you fall, it's also okay. But you're going to be okay in the end, because as a kid, I survived so much turmoil. With my family, moving countries, we're going to be okay. And a message to you guys, that's what we started this channel, not with a desire to get wealthy, with desire to give back. And my message to people who listen to us is, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Ups and downs, chaos, risk, discomfort, and anxiety. It's all okay. It's all going to be okay in the end. Okay. Just take it in the right way and keep climbing, keep moving, keep succeeding, and keep thinking in a way that's positive.
I like
productive.
that. So you're trying to say, I'm trying to understand that in this way, that chaos and crisis sometimes expose your superpower.
Yes.
So you must to read and understand.
Yes.
Okay, and try to find out your way. It's not just to complain. Don't become a victim, right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. I just want to say, spend a couple more minutes, maybe a minute, on the idea of a superpower. So this is going to be, I think we're going to maybe call this video the discovery of superpower.
Yeah, good.
What is your superpower? Okay. And if there is a scene of the movie, it came to my mind now. It's a scene from Indiana Jones movie. And I don't remember which one it is, but back from the 80s, that was one of my favorite movies. And I think that there's a scene there where, he's kind of faced with he's standing in the rock, and people are chasing him, and he's at the opening of this cave, and he needs to, and in front of him is an abyss. There's, he doesn't know where to go next. And I think, and basically, he said, he remembers this kind of, I think he's dealing like some ancient prophecy, and he says like, just go forward and you'll be successful. Go forward, you'll be successful. And he, some enemies are catching up with him. And what he does is basically, he makes a step into the abyss. He really steps into the abyss.
And accept and go.
He accepts. And then what happens at that second, there's a bridge that's emerging. So this is when your superpower will emerge. When you do something scary, you'll jump into darkness, you'll step into the abyss, and then that's when you discover your superpower.
Wow.
You really have to get yourself to the edge.
That was deep.
Get yourself to the edge. Don't be afraid of the edge, of the abyss.